So, I finally got my hands on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and today I'm gonna go through all the camera features, compare it to the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and we're gonna see why I think this phone right here is a game changer when it comes to photography and filmmaking with your smartphone. Let's do this! What is going on? It's Anil. So, iPhone 13 Pro Max is a thing of beauty. Just look how beautiful this phone is. So first off, let's compare the design of the iPhone 13 versus the iPhone 12. Now this is my old, I say it's old, but my old iPhone 12 Pro Max, iPhone 13 Pro Max, and as you can see, they are very similar. The 13 Pro is supposed to be 10 grams heavier, but you can't really tell the difference. It's supposed to be slightly thicker. You can't tell the difference. What you can tell the difference is the cameras. Now, if I put the cameras up like this, I don't know if you can see it, but the cameras on the iPhone 13 Pro Max are bigger. They are bigger sensor. They poke out a lot more at the back. That is probably the biggest difference in terms of how it looks compared to the iPhone 12 Pro Max. The only other noticeable difference is the notch on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is slightly smaller. It didn't make any much difference to me, but I'm just letting you know. So before we move on to the camera features, I'm gonna go through a few other little features on the iPhone 13 Pro Max that are nice little touches. The first feature is the new 120 Hz adaptive display. Now, I've never used an 120 Hz adaptive display before, but it is so smooth. Once you got it out the box and you start scrolling around, it does make a big difference in how you're using the phone and how you're enjoying using your phone. Now, the phone isn't always running at 120 Hz, it's adaptive. So if you just kind of reading some text, it might drop down to like 10 Hz, and then as you start scrolling, it'll boost up to 120 Hz. It's very nice. It has an A15 chip. Can't really comment on that yet. I've not used it enough to really see how fast it is. I can't wait to start editing on this phone just to see how much more powerful it can be. The other improvement that is quite big for me is the battery life. 2.5 extra hours on the 13 Pro Max over the 12 Pro Max. That is going to make a massive difference for us filmmakers that are out and about having to shoot loads of footage. You're going to get extra battery life, extra footage. Right, so before we move on to the actual camera features, if you like the content, guys, please smash the like button. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell, you know the drill. You'll get notified when I drop the next video. So now let's have a look at the cameras. The telephoto has a 3x optical zoom. That's the equivalent of 77mm on your smartphone. Now there is a downside. The aperture is only 2.8 on the optical zoom now, but I would take that. I would take that over the extra zoom that you're gonna get with this lens. The ultra wide has a 1.8 aperture, faster sensor with focus pixel, so autofocus now built in to the ultra wide. The standard wide, bigger aperture, more light coming into that sensor. Wow. So guys, let's move on to the...
This is a reminder, water plants.
Sorry, Alexa, got to water the plants. I'll be back, water the plants. So let's move on to some of the new functionality, new features that are available on the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. So the ultra wide lens now has a macro feature. Now I took it out for a spin. I was really impressed of how well it worked. You can get up to 2 centimeters to your subject, snap a macro shot. Now it's worth noting here that as you get closer to the subject, it will automatically switch to the ultra wide lens to take that macro shot. I guess it's convenient that it does switch it, but it's not very obvious that it's switching. There's a slight flicker on the screen. If you catch it, you know that you're in macro mode. But also there's no visual representation that you've switched to the 0.5 lens, and you can't switch back by touching the screen. Maybe these things that Apple will improve in future updates. But the macro mode, it's a nice little touch. Let's move on to low light performance. Now this is a big change for the iPhone. Bigger sensor, wider aperture, better low light performance on the wide and the ultra wide lens. Now the wide lens captures 2 times more light than the 12 Pro Max. And this is pretty good. I took it out for a spin, took some shots, really impressed with how well the iPhone 13 handles low light on the wide lens. But the ultra wide lens, this was the biggest problem on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Ultra wide in low light wasn't great, was not great. But now the ultra wide lens on the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max captures up to 92% more light. I took some sample videos here side by side with the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and I was surprised how well the low light performance was on the 13 model. Wow, I'm going to be shooting a lot more footage in low light conditions because the iPhone 13 just got that much better. So we talked about the optical lens having more zoom, 77mm equivalent. Now I had to take this out for a spin. I was quite impressed actually how good the quality was at 3 times zoom. It's a nice touch to have that extra optical zoom performance on the iPhone 13. I'll definitely be using the optical and telephoto lens a lot more going forward. Finally, the feature that I was looking forward to the most, cinematic mode on the iPhone 13. Basically, Apple have given you the ability to shoot shallow depth of field video or portrait mode that you're used to seeing on previous iPhone models for photos, now on video. I was very impressed actually with the performance. The automatic focus racking worked really well. As you kind of bring in faces, it will automatically rack focus and blur out the background. Yeah, it was quite impressive. You can even adjust the level of blur that you want. You can change the f-stop. It's quite easy to do. You can even do it in post-production. So you can shoot your video, not have to worry about any of that stuff, and then in post-production you can tap on subjects, bring them in focus, take them out of focus. I was amazed at how good it is. Now there are some downfalls of this. The first one is it doesn't work on the ultra wide. That would have been nice if it did work on the ultra wide. Maybe in future updates they might give it to us. But the biggest downfall, and the reason why I'm even filming this particular video in 30 frames per second, is because cinematic mode is only supported at 30 frames per second. 1080p. Now hopefully Apple will give us 24 frames per second or 25 frames per second in future updates. I kind of understand why it's 1080p. There must be a ton of processing needed to get that effect, so I kind of understand why it's not in 4K. Come on Apple, 24 frames per second, 25 frames per second. Give it to us. The other cool thing is Apple have updated iMovie to allow you to edit cinematic mode footage. Now I've not played around with this, but my next video is going to be all about filming and editing cinematic mode footage with iMovie. So watch out for that video. I had fun playing around with it, shooting some videos, but I don't know if it's just a novelty thing at the moment. I'm excited that it's there. I'm using it. Is it something that's more of a gimmick? Is it something that's going to wear off? I don't know. We have to see how it goes. It's really impressive though. Really impressive. Now some other features that have come as part of the update. I've not looked at it in too much detail yet, but there is something called photography styles, where you can set a default style for your photography. Also, ProRes was announced by Apple. Now, I'm really excited about ProRes. It's not coming out till later this year, and ProRes doesn't give you any kind of image quality improvements, but it's the format that filmmakers are very much used to editing. So editing with ProRes footage is going to be so much more easier, and it'll be supported by video editors. They'll know the format. But ProRes does take up a lot of memory, so if you're looking to take advantage of ProRes, then you need to make sure when you buy your iPhone 13 Pro that you go for the size that you need. I think it's something like 1 GB per minute. So depending on how much footage you're going to film in a single shoot, you might want to consider maybe even the 1 TB version of the iPhone. So guys, that is it. iPhone 13 Pro Max. You know what? There are so many more people that are connecting with this art form. I'm meeting people every day that want to learn more about how to shoot video, take better photos with their smartphones. The community is growing, and devices like this are only gonna make it better. This is definitely a game changer. Guys, you know what? Drop a comment. Let me know how you get on. Are you purchasing the iPhone 13 Pro? Let me know. Also, check out these other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.